I try to break free to get to the surface, and he holds on to me because that's how he's trained, to not let somebody free ascend, but I knew how to free ascend. So I punched him as hard as I could in the face.
Jacques Cousteau is your hero growing up. You were obsessed with scuba, learned to scuba at the Buffalo YMCA.
Yeah, that's a true story.
How did you almost die, though, on the abyss?
Oh, well, I had asked for them to build a system where they would bring a high-pressure manifold down to the bottom of the tank so that we could go over and refill our scuba bottles while we were on the bottom without having to surface. And the day we instituted that, I said, all right, I'm going to lose track of time because I won't be surfacing. And I charged my first AD with the job of setting his digital watch to remind me when I needed to go refill. And sure enough, he lost track of it. And I was in the middle of setting up a scene, and I wound up running out of air in a diving helmet, wearing no fins, heavily weighted at the waist, heavily weighted at the ankles, because you push the camera around, you walk around on the bottom. And at that point, I would have been 80 pounds negative, 40 feet down. It was a dark set. There were some lights over there. I was standing in a dark area. Nobody saw me because I had safety divers on everybody, on all the actors. I didn't have one on me because I'm like a 2,000 hour underwater guy, right? And on a normal tank with a normal second stage, you get a couple of hard breaths and you start to realize that you're running out. This was a piston servo regulator, so it literally just went click. That was it. So I'm mid-breath. So I look at my gauge, pinned. I thought it was maybe a failure of the regulator. I look at my gauge. No, I'm out. And I have no backup air supply. Well, the first thing I did was try to contact my DP, who was about 30 feet away on a ladder screwing around with the camera. I'm like, ow, ow, ow. He didn't hear me because he had blown both his eardrums diving the Andrea Doria in a diving bell accident. He couldn't hear a thing. So now I'm really screwed because I've used up half my air trying to call Al what I had left. Now we got to get out of this thing. So now I'm doing a bailout. You pull a cotter pin here, you pull this knurled knob out, you drop the neck ring down, you push it back and it unseats off the back, drops down onto your neck, take your helmet off. Now I'm blind and out of air, in the dark, 80 pounds negative, 70 pounds negative. I drop the helmet, I reach down, I know where my BC clasp is, I know where my cummerbund is, I drop the BC, I drop the waist weights. I can't do anything about the ankle weights in the dark. I just start swimming. I'm swimming like a mother, right? Because I don't have fins on. But I have done free ascent. I've been trained on free ascent. I know how to do it. It's called blow and go. So you're going like that because you don't want to hold your breath. If you really hold your breath, you'll die. You'll hemorrhage.
Do you think you're dead in this point? Okay.
No, I actually thought I was going to be okay. Now, a safety diver sees me free ascending, having dropped my gear. His training is don't let somebody free ascend because they don't know what they're doing, and they'll have what's called a spontaneous pneumothorax. You'll rupture your lungs and you'll bleed out and you'll die. So he catches me about 8 feet from the surface and stops me and shoves a regulator in my mouth. He didn't test the regulator. It had a ruptured or a split diaphragm. So I purge it and I go to inhale, I get water. I purge again, I go to inhale, I get water. And so I throw it back at him and I try to break free to get to the surface, and he holds on to me because that's how he's trained, to not let somebody free ascend, but I knew how to free ascend. So I punched him as hard as I could in the face, broke his mask, and free ascended. Now, it was very, very close. I was whiting out as I reached the surface. In a couple of breaths, I was fine. That was bad. So I fired that guy and I fired the first AD. And those are the only two people I've ever fired in anger.
Really?
Yeah. And my first instruction was, okay, dry out my helmet, put in a new microphone, get it ready, and I'll go back down as soon as you're ready. So I was back down on the bottom in 10 minutes and finished the day. But I remember Mary Elizabeth Mastrantonio watched the whole thing happen, and I had been assuring her the entire time that it was perfectly safe. We have safety divers everywhere. You're not going to be in trouble. And then she sees me,
So you've been to the lowest point of the ocean, the first person in history to achieve that solo.
I would technically argue that I actually was the first person to the deepest place in the ocean, because the guys that went in 1960 dove in a different spot. And it's been pretty much scientifically shown that the place I went was like 30 feet deeper, 40 feet deeper.
Why do it?
Oh, because it's a great technical challenge. It had intrigued me since we were out on Bismarck in 2002 and we were down 15,000 feet. That's pretty damn deep, right? Except it's really not that deep, because the ocean's over twice that deep. And these are the deepest diving submersibles in the world. What would it take to go twice that deep? And then I had some JPL scientists on board, coincidentally, because we had been doing some hydrothermal work with a laser spectrometer. And I said, well, we'll have to re-engineer the flotation system. We'll need new syntactic foam. We'll need this, we'll need that. What kind of hull material would you use? We just started thinking. And so from 2002 to 2005, we just talked about it. And in 2005, about the time I started on Avatar, I actually started spending money on designing a vehicle. And then so we completed that in the background while I was making Avatar.
The most memorable part of it for you was what?
I mean, obviously the most memorable part was reaching the bottom. And there's a quiet and there's a stillness, and I'm looking at the bottom sounder, the echo sounder, and seeing it counting down. And I pointed all my lights straight down, and I turned them up to full brightness. And that moment when you first see the bottom, there's nothing, and then there's a milkiness, and it sort of goes through green into a kind of a beigey brown as you descend. And textbook landing. I've got a good shot, so that's important, And then I called the surface, and there was this Navy comms guy that was working with us. And I said, I'm on the bottom. I gave him the depth, and he said, copy. That was it. No, Eagle has landed, whoop, whoop, Now the guys in the control room were overhearing that, and so they were cheering. And the next voice I hear after that is Susie. Says, hey, baby, how you doing?
At one point, I know you were interested in, a documentary in space, didn't work out, but what would you still like to do?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't mind doing a 3D film about, circumnavigating the moon or landing on the moon. That'd be cool. I'd want to go, of course. Gotta stay healthy for a while for that one. No, in terms of, ocean exploration, I'm actually developing a new project right now, which is top secret. But there are a lot of deep investigations that could be done, because the trenches are not well understood at all. So you've got an area about the size of, let's call it, continental United States on this planet where nobody's looked. Now, it's not all in one place. It's all distributed around. There are trenches all around the world, but there could be all kinds of amazing new species down there.